It ended up being a pretty fun week of SuperCoach BBL there in round 3, and I ended up with a pretty good score myself at 1,027. I was just doing the maths, and I wish I didn't. It would have been a lot better. I was 1k short of the trades that I wanted to do, and it probably turns out that keeping Weatherall, which was my hope that I could try and do that, I was 1k short of just being able to sell Consus to get Mr. Johnson. I was going to say Sean Johnson, Mr. Spencer Johnson. And that cost me 130 points in the end because I did select Mitch Swepson instead, who picked up a 40 odd. 40 odd instead of 170 odd. Thankfully, Spencer didn't go absolutely bonkers in the second game, and I got plenty of luck myself last night. So, yeah, swings and roundabouts, hey? That's for sure. I do have Philippi in my side, and he did get, well, they didn't even touch it, but should have been caught on 3 when he skied it up, and Munro and Walter both decided to, yours, mine, leave it, and it hit the deck. So that was helpful to get that extra, close to 100 points there. But the Spencer one would have been very, very helpful. It was not. Alas, we move on. We did move into 740 overall with 1,027. Very happy with that. We have used both of our boosts because that's not super ideal, but it is what it is. And thankfully, I think knowing that I was going to be using my boost, had to hold Matt short, and that ended up being a good thing there at 120 points. We do have a couple of injuries to worry about in all of our sides, so just listening to a few people talk about and reading, them talk about Mr. Jack Edwards, and we've got Curtis Patterson, who played really, really well last night. And does he keep his spot at 3? I think he probably deserves it after that. And Steve Smith's going to come back eventually. Will he? He'll want to come into that top order, whether it's opener or 3. I think he'll probably have to bat at 3, to be fair. Without Philippi, has played in this double, and then Vince coming off 100 a couple of games ago as well. He'd have to bat 3 as well. So I think it's smart, as I was saying, that Edwards would bat middle order, and then with some hamstring awareness, hamstring tightness, does he even bowl for the next week or so? So he's probably a sell. Tom Curran's a sell with his calf injury. And then you have to make some decisions, and I'm a little bit annoyed. I think Weatherall probably doesn't make this squad, this 11 anyway, given how well Mr. Darcy Short has played in his recent games at the top of the order. So if he does come into it, it's probably at 5, and that's if he out duels Alex Ross as well. So it's pretty tough, I think, for those guys. So they may end up being my trades. Again, wish I did trade Weatherwood last week and could just use Constance going forward probably as that looper. But we live and we learn. That's for sure. We did get away with Bartlett not going nuts, Akil Hassan not going nuts in prep of holding Matt Short and Overton for their double here in round 4. So very happy with that setup. Got a good score out of Turner, ended up with a good first score out of Renshaw, and then picked up a 1. It was a terrible shot and a catch in the second one. I ended up captaining Walter after vice-captaining Jack Edwards. 76 for Paul. There weren't too many incredible captaincy wins, apart from like a Spencer Johnson, given Maxwell picked up a 70-odd as well. I did see the odd person captain Renshaw, so he outdueled Mr. Walter by 1. But very, very happy with my trade-in of Dwarshus in the end. Picked up a 4-fer in that second game. Swepson wasn't anything special with the 42 there. We played Thornton. His 4 dropped out, so that was fine. Held on to Turner for a 57. He's up at 112k now, which is really nice for a number 5 bat. And holding short, holding Overton was lovely on that front. So moving on to this week. Liam Scott is likely to be sticking in the squad and bowling some good overs, although he did bowl the 4 overs and went for 53 the other day. Weatherall, I don't think makes the squad. So we are looking at strikers and we are looking at renegades this week. And the real question is, how do you get these guys? And if you do own a few of the players that I mentioned that are injured or potentially injured in Edwards, Curran, potentially not playing, or injured in Weatherall, then you've got a few guys to sell. If you did end up buying an Akil Hassan, if you bought a Maxwell, a Bartlett, these types of guys at a high price, and I think to get those guys, you probably did have to sell an Overton or a Short. They are the first priorities. So top 2 priorities are Matt Short and Overton. If you're looking straight up at averages, Overton's averaging 98.5, so he's number 1 priority, although Short can obviously get up to that, which we saw last year. He's averaging 69, but coming in to a little bit of form in that last game, and Adelaide Oval looked like a much better wicket than what we have seen in previous time. But the Adelaide Strikers do play at Marvel Stadium, and we have seen that in their previous game anyway. The Renegades there, that it was very much a bowling wicket if you bowled first. It got a lot nicer in the second innings, and I do believe that the pitch will be better from that game. Given that was the first one of the BBL fixture, this second one, I think the pitch will be a little bit better, a little bit closer to what we saw last year from Marvel Stadium. But just be aware of that Overton has bat and ball priority and has the best role in the game right now, batting 6, bowling 4. So they're the top 2 priorities from Adelaide. Next up on the list has to be Will Sutherland. He's the most expensive on that list. And let's just go through all of them from now. So they're the top 3 priorities, and then there's a bunch of different guys that you can select. So in the wicket keeper's slot, if you own Philippe, you do hold at this point, in my opinion. Ben Duckett was the guy. I was looking at him in the preseason and was like, well, he's the best batter coming over, the best international player. He got our first ball to Matt Shaw. Thank you for that. And that scared most people off, and thank goodness, because he ended up dominating with 210 across the double and top scoring there with Philippe close by in at second there at 198. So the keeper's actually doing the business this year. We've got, in some cases anyway, this week we had Billings as well as Ben McDermott come out and score really, really well, with a 60-odd for McDermott and the 70-odd and 4 catches, I believe, for Billings in that one there. So Billings does have the double coming up, but he is batting in an awkward spot, obviously, there. He's picked up, in 3 games, he's picked up 147 and then, 60-odd, 64 points in the other 2 games. So it's no slam dunk, but if you were to buy now at 133, you get him for his double in round 6, and you get a little bit of a price bump for this week at least, unless he goes really poorly for 2 weeks straight. Then he won't make much cash, but if he does all right, then you can slot that in. Harper is done in most people's sides, but at 82k, do you just hold him in your wicketkeeper bench slot or your bat slot? I don't know if you want to start him anymore, just with a few of these wicketkeepers going pretty well. You've got Ollie Pope now. The duels have popped in, and he has the wicket-keeping duel, so you can slot Ollie in on the double if you do prefer that. And then Tim Seaford at 184. So they're 2 guys this week in the keeper slot that you could look at for the double. And I think both will be pretty solid. Although Seaford is coming onto 2 decks that aren't as batting friendly, his form is absolutely incredible. And he suits really, really well in that wicket-keeping slot. They've had their bye out of the way, so he'll play the rest of the season now. Has a double this week, and it's just a good purchase based on form. He's averaging 76.7, which is absolutely incredible. McDermott's a little bit cheaper at 123, who does have the double in round 8, so be aware of that. You also have Shai Hope at 126. So if you wanted to pick one of those 2 guys, either one I think is solid. Hope played a little bit better in that previous game, and has the runs on the board internationally. McDermott has the runs on the board, especially in the Big Bash. So either one of those guys could be solid. Ollie Pope down on 135 now. Doesn't have a great break even. It's very high, but we know he has the pedigree as well. He's just as good of a player as Duckett, albeit not as incredible of a hitter, I suppose. And he's batting at 4 compared to 1 for Duckett. But Ollie Pope is one of those guys that hasn't had a perfect start. He's been scoring solidly with a lower strike rate, but he's one of those guys that can come out and do the business. Tom Benton at 104k, bat only, is probably a sell at this point. You grabbed him for this one and for this double, and it didn't work out perfectly. So that's him there. But if you have to hold on to just because of the price, then that's fine as well. Looking to the batsmen now, if you were to sell a Curran, the guys you do want to look at, in my opinion, obviously are Adelaide. You're looking at Renegades, you're looking at Hobart, and you're looking at the Thunder. You're not looking at Stars anymore. I don't think Brisbane you're obviously holding potentially 1 or 2 of these guys. You're not going to buy any more of them. And then you've got the Perth guys. I don't really think there's anyone as a specific buy, especially in the bowling slot. There's a lot of rotation risk, and in the batters, unless you want to take a flyer on Finn Allen at the cheap price. And then the Sixers, you've likely got them right now, and you're holding on tight to those guys. So they're the 4 teams you want to look at that do have doubles remaining, and you could stash one of those guys away now for a double later on. That's why Mitch Owen was good last week. You got the price rise. 28 wasn't the worst score in the world after he got picked up a couple of catches with his 8 runs. And then you've got a few other guys that could do well from the Thunder and also the Hobart Hurricanes from a later date. But with Sutherland averaging 93 across his first 3 games, That's a very, very special average, and a guy that's under 200k that I think dual position wise could stick in your side for the rest of the season at 191. It's not overly, ridiculous, a 242 or 249 like a Overton or Short, which could be hard to hold. Sutherland, I think if you get him now with a solid break even, he could be a guy that you do hold for the season. Moving on to the other batters there, you've got some nice, we'll go straight through averages instead of total points there. You do have Billings and Seaford, as we saw there, with some really, really good games. We spoke about them. Mitch Owen at 117 now feels a little bit more of an awkward pick, but if you do select him now, he's got the dual position. He'll play as an opening bat in this side, and he's going to score quick. And if he does it properly and he does it well, he could be awesome for your sides if you do to pick him. Jason Sanger, some injury worries for him now after he went off, partway into that game. But him at 82k would be really, really cool if we knew that he was okay. But they play tonight. We'll have to see if he's named, and if he's actually going to be playing, then I think you could select him at 82k. He came in and did a really, really good job, and then was bowling as well and picked up that wicket. So I think he was celebrating whatever it was. He got injured doing that, which wasn't great. So he's an interesting one, 82k. And then you got Darcy Short at 124. Personally, owning Weatherald and going through that debacle, I don't know if I could do it personally, but I know some of you might. And he's averaging 50 across the 3 games he has played so far. You've got Sam's at 160. I think you can wait for him after that 38. It's not tremendous, and not one where his price is going to get away. You've got a couple of cheaper guys in Ross and Baisley. If you have any of them, you're holding on tight. Ollie Davies picked up a duck in that last game, so he's a cheap guy you could stash away as well, knowing that he will get the chance. You can wait around for Warner for his price to drop a little bit further. You have some of the cheaper guys who haven't done really well in Josh Brown as the bat only, and Jake Fraser-McGurk. We know that his time's going to come where he dominates, and same with Josh Brown. They're going to have their games, but is it this week at Showground and at Marvel, or is it in a different week? That's probably the question you have to ask. Laurie Evans is down 108k as well. And you got Jacob Bethel, who has the dual, won't likely be bowling, but him at 100k is a really interesting proposition as well, even if he's batting at 4. 4 might be better on these slightly tougher decks. We'll have to see how that one plays out. But we know his class, and we know he can go nuts, and he's one of those guys that started poorly, has the class. Is he the guy at 100k that does the business this week? He's probably the one that stands out to me as the guy to potentially pick over a Josh Brown or a Laurie Evans right now, even though he is batting at 4, and then Jake Fraser-McGurk at 105k is a really interesting proposition as well. Liam Scott, if you don't own, so I am currently an owner, at 51k, he could easily be the cash down that you need to get to the players you want. And someone I'm actually looking at this week, given he's dropped down to a very, very cheap price after going duck into a 68, is Tim David. So he becomes that interesting proposition because he has the double later on, and we know that he's a very hit and miss player, but at 58k, I think that's cheap enough to find out there, that's for sure. He got 33 runs with the 25 strike rate bonus and picked up a catch in the game just gone, but the first 2 he went duck. So if that was the case, that would not be very nice. Let's just say that if you held him for that double, you played him and he went duck. But if you're paying 58k for it, the risk I think is worth it when he can go 33 off not many and pick up a nice strike rate bonus and get a 50 odd in that middle order. So you're paying 58k for a guy that is, plays for Australia in T20s and can do a good job. We paid a bit more for Turner, for someone that probably doesn't have the ability to go at the incredible strike rate, but is a little bit safer. So that's what we're looking at with Tim David, and he's someone that is on my list as a potential buy, just based on the fact that he's cheap and has a double remaining. Nikhil Chowdhury, he's had a tough start as well. He went 0, 3 and 43, well 3 across his first 2 games, and then that 43 on the weekend bowling as well. So he's him at 94k. He's dropped 50k now, and he's someone to have a sneaky look at. Chris Lynn, he's an interesting fella in this squad. Given he's gone down 68k, there's a reason he was that high priced. He was the second highest run scorer last year behind Matt Short, and with Adelaide looking better, he picked up 19 runs on the weekend, and unfortunately for him, stopped him from getting the strike rate bonus. So at 129k, he has the ability at that price now, not at 190, but at 129k to open things up for your side and be the Ben Duckett of the week. He could also, hit 40 for the week. But at 129k, to have that potential upside, I think that is a pretty solid shout. So keep him in your thoughts there. If he goes nuts one game, he could get 60 odd and pick up 100 points there for your Supercoach side, and then have a second crack at it after that. Shafane Rutherford's an interesting one. At 92k, he's had a very, very terrible start, but as a bat-only guy at 6, I don't really like it, 5 or 6 there for that one. And that's the batting squad overall. Just keep looking at forward, basically, is what we want to be looking at from here. Okay, let's say I was moving on from Mr. Paulie Walter. What we got here is it all set again, which is nice. Where's Agar? What a beautiful game from him. 116k. Has the double coming up in a few weeks, and I don't know how he wasn't playing from the start. He's been the type of guy that Thunder need, I think. And that's why I thought it was a good signing, but it hasn't come to fruition yet. So up to Thunder. I'm a Thunder fan myself, and for those guys to only miss out on that last ball on Chris Green's 100th, it was rough for them to be 3 from 3. But yeah, great stuff from those guys anyhow. But yeah, Tom Rogers at 150k. It's getting expensive, but he's scored really, really well, averaging 76, taking lots of wickets. And on the decks that they're going to be playing on, as I said, Showground and Marvel, their bowlers are going to be a very, very fun one to target. And how many Renegades bowlers is too much? That's going to be the question, because I'm looking at potentially getting Sutherland and Rogers this week at 191 and 151k. Very, very fun proposition. Those guys are, that's for sure. So how do you get them in your side? That's the big question, I think, on most people's lips is how to do that. And at that price, it may be a little bit difficult, but we'll have to see how that one plays out. That's for sure. If you can get them in, I think they're worth it. I've got Tom Rogers as probably number 4 or 5 on the list, up there with like Chris Lynn and potentially a Bethel. On that front, and just with a nice low break even as well. So they're the guys you want to target. He has a better average than Matt Short right now, so you have to have him in your plans in the 3 games that he has played. Ellis at 164 is probably a little bit expensive for now. Fergus O'Neill at 140, coming off a couple of 3-fers now, and 68 is his average. He's someone I do own in my side currently, and I'm excited to own. With the setup going on, if you want to pick him 10k cheaper than Tom Rogers, that's fine, but Rogers does swing the ball a little bit more, and I think has bowled better so far, if that means anything to you. And then Lockie Ferguson at 176, I can't wait to potentially own him in round 6. I love watching him bowl, averaging 65 across his 3 games as well, and deserves the 25k in price rises, because that first over the other night, my goodness, the late swing at that pace, it'd be so hard to face. That's for sure. I've had to face him in the nets when he came and played for Southo for 3 games, and that wasn't fun, but it was fun watching him bowl to everyone else. Thankfully, he didn't try to kill people in nets off his bunch of steps, whereas Mr. Dwarcius, no matter how many steps he bowls off, 3, 20, it's the same pace. It's tough. And we know last night we saw him get 4 for, and he bowled really well. Riley Meredith at Meredith at 112. With a 47 average, he's got a ton in there. He's got a 1, and he's got a 30 odd. So Meredith is up and down, that's for sure. But at 112k, I think he's someone that you could take a punt on. He's 30k up from his starting price though, so keep that in your thoughts. And does Tanvir Sanger come back and take Jason Sanger out of the side? That's could be the thing that happens, or does he just straight up take Tom Andrews, who did play the other night? Henry Thornton, I do own at 114k. I don't know if he's a buy at this point. He's up 16k. It's not ridiculous. I think, it's still a solid pick for sure. We do need him to bowl a little bit better, but they are coming onto some nicer decks. Unfortunately, Adelaide Oval looked pristine for batting the other day, so that does make it a little bit tough, but it's also nice to own, I think, one of the strikers bowlers at this point outside of Overton. But you're also sitting there with, if you have like a Liam Scott, a Matt Shaw, you have sort of 4 of the bowlers that they do possess there. If you have Baisley, you're holding on. And Chris Jordan was someone I actually had a little quick look at last night as well. 105k, picked up a 63 in that 3rd game there, and is in a decent spot, I think, to be a guy that you can hold in your side. He can have the odd really good game. You can chuck the emergency on him tonight, for example, in them being the first game, and he has the potential to go big. Batting lower, yes, he's a year older, but he hasn't had his terrific game as yet. Last year he had a 1 or 2, and he was priced at the end of the year just a tick under 150k. So he's someone I do think can come out and do a really good job. and you could stash away now after that. Those bunch of price drops. He picked up the 63, and 105k could do a really good job for you. If you like, at that price point, 88k for Kane Richardson. Has picked up 2 wickets in the 3 games so far. The other guys have got the spoils in Fergus and Tom Rogers. Does Kane Richardson get the spoils this week? The 88k, it's a really solid price, and I think he could definitely do a good job. I'd probably have him slightly over Zampa at the moment. The decks that they're going to be playing on seem to take pace a little bit better, a little bit more movement off the seam, and a little bit less for the spin. He's also, it's just not coming out well, especially in that last game. He was just bowling low fully after low fully, sadly. So I'll be playing him on the double. I'm not super excited about it, but he is 74k. If you need someone cheap, he could be the play. And then you got Wicket from the Hurricanes at 83.7k. He's going to be there. He's going to be bowling. There will be a game where he does well. Is it in their double? Do you get him now? Can he make some cash in the meantime? That's probably the big question for you. And does Brendan Doggett come into this side for the Adelaide Strikers? That's the final question. Hopefully it's not at the expense of Henry Thornton if he does. But I imagine at the moment they're just looking at him as more of a red ball bowler. He obviously is a 71k for a reason. He didn't go that well last year either. And lastly, with lots of single games coming up, loopers are going to be pretty important. So Doran is my looper right now in the wicket keeping position. It doesn't really help me right now, given I only have the 1 wicket keeper. But can you get a bat bowl guy, like Liam Scott was meant to be, but he's not now, as a non-playing dual position guy? Some people are looking at Harry Manenti. You've got Hugh in there, Wiebgen, who's with the Thunder, as that dual position down at 39.5k. You've still got Will Salzman. They do play the first game tonight, and they play a lot of first games, so that's where someone like Manenti could be a better pick. Do you just pick a single, bat-only guy or a bowl-only guy? Just when we've got the single games, we're going to have not many buys. We've got strikers to have a buy to come only. You're going to need the dual position guy to get your single game really good score, because it's going to be, those guys I'm looking at. I've got Swepson in my side at 95k. He could come out and get a 70 in one game, pick up 3 for. There's a bunch of other guys. Stoinis can come out and dominate. And if you've got them rotting away on your emergency and don't have the dual, then that could be an issue. So something to think about for your side. And thanks for listening to this one, guys. It really helped me with my thoughts on my side. And my team's JB's upside. And I'm trying to just imprint it in my brain that we've got to go for upside. And I still missed out on doing it last week. I was looking at doing it with Johnson. It wasn't to be. Went for the safer, I suppose, play in Walter. Looking back at that, I should say, wasn't super ideal, but I'm still trying to imprint it in my brain about the upside. So that's where guys like Chris Lynn have it. Bethel, these types of guys as bat-only guys, Jake Fraser-McGurk have it. And then you've got the bowlers, you're looking at Sutherland, these types of guys who have terrific roles. So thanks for that one, guys. We'll catch you in the round 4 results video.